The club's annual visit to Cadwell Park came on the 25th of July 2021, with all three series making the trek up to Lincolnshire. The weather forecast at first did not look especially promising, but thankfully for all the drivers it stayed dry for the whole day. The Intermarque Silhouette's one of the first sessions out of the day, which possibly saw the track being a bit slicker than they would have expected. Scott Appoliano was one of the fastest drivers early on, which was great to see. But as the session went on, some of the leading drivers in the series would put in representative lap times, and it would be Ray Harris taking pole position ahead of Lewis Smith. Daniel Smith was an impressive third position, followed by Malcolm Blackman and Dave York rounding up the top five. Appoliano would end up in sixth position, with Philip Young going well to get seventh. Colin Smith had a rough sounding engine and would qualify eighth, but unfortunately would have to withdraw before race one. The rest of the grid would comprise of Chris Ayling, Phil Spinks and John Price, and sadly John Stewart's long journey up from Kent would end with an engine failure, so unfortunately for him he'd have to load up early and drive back down to Kent. We had lost a number of drivers before the weekend had even started through various reasons, including one of the series' favourites. Unfortunately, Steve Burrows could not make it up to Cadwell, which was slightly disappointing for him after a great season so far. The first race saw a dramatic start as Harris and Lewis Smith anticipated the drop of the Union flag well, but as they went round Coppice and into Charlie's, they were both simultaneously spin. Lewis Smith regained the tarmac first, whilst Harris rejoined at the rear. Meanwhile, Lewis's brother Daniel popped into the lead, with Blackman right in pursuit. Most people had then thought that Malcolm would challenge for the lead, but instead Daniel pulled away impressively, around a second a lap. And into third position was York, and he was staying right on the rear of Blackman's Red Tigra, his recent test day proving dividends. Lewis Smith soon regained fourth position, so attention focused on this trio. Ayling was holding on to fifth from Appoliano until Harris passed the pair of them on lap number 5. Further back, there was a great battle between the two Phillips, Young and Spinks. They were dicing over positions, possibly seeing them in the top 5 at the end of this race. Unfortunately, on laps 6 and 7, we had two big retirements, Lewis Smith and Harris both ending up retiring from the race. In the case of the Ginetta driver, he was overheating due to grass in the radiator. Meanwhile, out front, Daniel Smith drove the perfect race on his way to a 10-second victory, with second place Blackman just holding off York. Ayling would take fourth position, but only just half a second ahead of Appoliano in fifth. Chris also winning the senior section. Young held off Spinks by a similar margin, and Price completed the finishers, and with only 10 starters, the reverse grid draw had to be halved, so only the front three were inverted for the second race. Race 2 would then get underway in the afternoon, with Blackman taking the lead early on, but it was Daniel Smith who managed to get past the pair of them and into the lead once again. Lewis Smith and Ray Harris would charge from the back row of the grid after their unfortunate DNFs in the first race to occupy third and fourth by lap number 2, as York had slipped back behind Ayling. The battle for second position was getting quite crowded, a number of the drivers all trying to occupy their second place on the road, until Lewis Smith unfortunately had to slow down and pull off and eventually retire from the race, whilst Malcolm Blackman made an uncharacteristic error with an off-track excursion. The grass collected in the radiator from that off unfortunately meant Malcolm had to retire from the second race as well. However, there was still a special battle for the lead of this race. Ray Harris had put in some fantastic laps and had started to eat into Daniel's lead. And by lap number 7, the two were separated by absolutely nothing, as Ray Harris looked for a way past. After an unfortunate end to the previous race, Ray had tried to make sure he'd get to the flag first, and a 10th and last lap would prove decisive. On the run from Mansfield to the S's, it was Harris to outbrake the blue Mercedes, but Daniel would hold on around the outside as both cars would jump over the mountain, and it was anyone's guess to see who would appear first around the final few corners. And as everyone focused their eyes on the final corner, they exited the barn corner, and it was number 33 that led the way by 0.3 of a second ahead of Ray Harris after a great comeback drive. York had seen a great turn of pace over the last few events, and this time would take third. Unfortunately, his competitor for this final spot on the podium, Ayling, would have to pull off on lap number 5. Appoliano would chase the Grey Tigra, even though TSL unfortunately decided to stop timing him due to a malfunctioning transponder. He was, however, given the Driver of the Day award after some fantastic performances in his Peugeot 206. Great to see all drivers battling it up near the front of the field. Young had more of a gap on Spinks in the second race of the day, although the Tigra driver did win the seniors category. and sadly for Price he had to retire, which left a very small number of finishers. But we do say a massive thank you to all of the drivers for making the trip up, and we look forward to going back to more familiar territory at Silverstone later in August. So, nearly a month to wait until the next Intermarque race of the season, but they've had a fantastic year so far, and hopefully the shorter journey will allow more drivers to attend the Silverstone venue in August. Thank you for watching this video, and we look forward to sharing the TinTop and Saloon race with you very shortly.